Very much. I'm Mitzi Wertheim with the Naval Postgraduate School, and I never studied economics, so I'm a little lost. I start.
So are we.
Well, no, Sir Adair Turner spoke at Hopkins a few years ago,
Yes, he did.
and he'd been appointed. My understanding was 8 days before our financial collapse occurred, he was given an enormous responsibility to understand the financial circumstances. Anyway, he started out by saying he created a committee that spent 6 months trying to understand the details about how we collapsed. What strikes me is academics do not write, they write in code, and they don't write for the general public to understand. And this continues, and yet when you say the public needs to be a part of this story, they have no idea how to think about it. I'm just going to pass on something rather quickly, which is Alan Alda had figured out if you want the public to understand, you write for 11-year-olds. And he's created these competitions, which started out, the first one was, how do you explain?
We need the question there. What's the
well,
question?
I want to ask how you get academics to write for 11-year-olds as well as for each other. Because if you just write for each other, you do not have an informed public.
Well, Vincent.
So I don't think this is a modern phenomenon. If you ask me what's the biggest cost of a financial crisis, it's the lessons you learn from that experience, and quite often you don't learn the right lessons. For instance, coming out of the Great Depression, we had the completely wrong diagnosis in terms of the sense that it was in fact the result of an excess of competition, that it told you needed fixed exchange rates, that monetary policy was ineffective, and it's only fiscal policy that works. It took, and that was reflected in legislation. That was reflected in lots of controls. That was reflected in the Bretton Woods system. It wasn't until 1963 that Milton Friedman started pushing back on that wrong diagnosis. And it took another 15 or 20 years to change the legislative edifice. Now, we probably didn't get that right. I'm willing to accept that. But we typically takes time to learn lessons when you have an event as complicated in such an opaque system.
This question, Karen, maybe.
Thank you, Karen Johnson.